So, CRO 2023 wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to cringe so hard on this title because I feel like every digital marketer hates the Spotify wrapped. I don't know why, but I feel like I see a lot of posts, people hating on it.
Probably they might expect like a bunch of like stats of how many times things happened.
Yeah, this is not it. This is not it. We're just going to go through a bunch of topics that happened this year in our industry and in our own work, because it feels like it was one of those years where a lot of stuff changed on a fundamental level in terms of how we and a lot of people do CRO.
Yeah, seems like a lot happened.
Yeah, and if you're watching for the first time and you don't have any idea who we are, I'm Gerda. This is Ryan. And we have a tiny CRO boutique agency, I guess. I feel like that's one of the things we've been struggling with is our identity in this work, because we used to call ourselves a consultancy, but nobody else calls us consultants really.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things of like other people putting us into a box and
Yeah.
we're maybe not resisting it as much
I think there's
anymore.
also just like a negative connotation to the word consultant for some reason.
Mm.
Like agency has this like prominence built into it, even if it is small for some reason.
Yeah, it's almost like you can put consultant at the bottom and at the top. Like it's sort of like an maybe more entry level way of going about it. Like people conflate it with freelancer.
Yeah.
But then also once you get to the point where your agency services are really like proceduralized and stuff, then there's also like a gap above that for consulting that isn't really easily proceduralized.
But yeah, we've been doing this for 3.5 years now under Koalatative,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Like, I still remember like the 2020 year when we were just like brainstorming names and had no
Mm.
idea really what's gonna happen, but somehow we've made it this far.
Yeah. It's trucking along nicely.
Yeah, so the last year especially has been really interesting. Um, and we have to start with, I'm really sorry about this, but we have to start with AI.
Yeah.
And
It'd be weird not to.
I'm going to put timestamps on this video as well. So if you're sick and tired about hearing AI, then you can just skip this part. But
Probably it's going to be the opposite. Everyone will just listen to the AI stuff and
uh,
skip the rest.
AI, AI, AI. What is there left to say about this? I feel like everyone has given us their hot take on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the thing that really happened this year was just like the other experience that came to my mind was the Y2K, where
Mm.
people kind of like I guess overreacted and like thought that robots are gonna take over or whatever. And I was too young to actually remember what happened then, but
Well, nothing's happened.
I mean, nothing happened, yeah, but it's kind of like the same vibe that I was getting from
Mm.
these AI posts, and everyone's like, oh my god, it's like our jobs are over. And I feel
Yeah.
like, especially the creative people freaked out for some reason, like the copywriters and the designers and the
Mm.
strategists. And to me, it doesn't make any sense because I feel like it's going to be the opposite, where the people whose jobs are more like, I don't know, related to development and that kind of stuff should be freaking out right now.
Yeah. It's like the stuff that requires more creativity is less likely to be affected. But something like programming, the whole basis of programming languages is that they're meant to be unambiguous representations compared to natural language. And now AI is able to handle like natural language as well, but something even less ambiguous than that is even easier for machines to work with and understand. And so that seems like the gap in between those two is kind of like the ideal niche.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's just also funny how quickly it went from like, oh my god, AI is going to steal all the copywriter's job, and then now we're at a point where everyone can spot if a social media post or an article is written by
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah, it's really weird. Even just like something that's a couple sentences, like a
Mm-hmm.
comment on a social media post or something. It's like a lot of times you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is obviously AI.
But yeah, in terms of CRO or how we work, I think, I mean, we haven't made much use of it yet ourselves, but I've seen other people talk about it in our industry, and how I
Mm-hmm.
think things are going to go is that A/B test developers should be very worried if they're specialized just on that, because already it's possible, to take the screenshot of any app or website and put it into ChatGPT and it spits out the front end code, right? And A/B testing is just the front end coding part.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's already at the point where you could just do your wireframe for the A/B test, show it to like one of the websites that does that is Make Real, and I forget the company that or the project behind it, but that's one where it's like you just draw something, then draw a little box on it, and then click a button that says make it real, and it'll actually spit out like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript even to make some of the like on page functionality happen.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because the development services are usually the most expensive ones, or like,
Yeah, like compared to design, or what do you?
I guess it really depends on location and all that
Yeah,
too, but it's just, I would say that one of the most expensive parts of having a good A/B testing or experimentation program is having a good developer that
yeah,
understands the platform and how to actually code A/B tests and stuff. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and actually, like judging by my email inbox, the web development industry was already getting pretty desperate.
yeah, we get so many cold pitches from
Hmm.
devs to work with them, which is also something that kind of accelerated this year. I think it wasn't really a thing before, or
I
was it?
think it. Yeah, I think it was. I think like it was already. I think web development was already getting pretty commoditized,
Mm,
and so a lot of web development shops were kind of resorting to pretty aggressive cold outreach. And then also I think AI factored into that even before like ChatGPT and that wave, because there's those things that will basically just like you hook it up to LinkedIn and it will just auto connect you with people in your industry and automatically send them a message, or variations of that sort of thing with email. So they were making use of that, already, which is maybe ironic in a way that they're making use of AI, which is like a big threat to them
hmm
as well. But I think that's kind of going to be a trend in a lot of places too. Is I think it's called the innovator's dilemma, which is whether or not to disrupt yourself before somebody else disrupts, like versus just kind of coasting with some sort of innovation that you have.
Mm.
And that kind of ties into what's happening with like a lot of products, like SaaS products and stuff, that are basically thinking this wave of AI is coming, we're just going to get completely washed away by it. So let's figure out how to incorporate
Yeah,
AI
and
into
then
our
it become.
product.
I just saw a post about it the other day. I forget who it was, but they were talking about, I think, Descript and Loom,
Yeah,
where they've
that's what I
just
was
kind of
thinking.
added AI onto the tool, and now it's become this huge like buggy mess and all these features that the core users didn't even actually need or anything.
Yeah, yeah, there's going to be a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah, but in terms of CRO research, I
Hmm.
think this year we also tried it out, or I tried it out with analyzing larger sets of qualitative data, like surveys and
Hmm.
such.
Yeah, that's been a
And
big topic.
yeah, lots of people talking about that, doing stuff with that. I don't know, my experience was that it's not as good as it could be. I don't know. It's
Hmm.
probably going to get better, but it doesn't really understand the underlying themes as a human does when you're looking through this survey data even.
Yeah.
And I really tried to utilize it to put together, I guess, summaries about each question or something like that. And at first, when it spits it out, I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then when you do it for 10 survey questions in a row and you start reading all of them and they all just kind of look the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, there's no real value in it. I still need to rewrite everything that it just said.
I think that the summarizing part is probably already getting better, even just with the upgrades of the GPT versions. And I think like there's people who have been playing a lot with this, like Craig Sullivan and Iqbal Ali. And I haven't really jumped into it, but from what they've been saying, they've been getting a lot more success with accurate like topic modeling or pulling out the themes. Like, but even initially they were talking about how you could run the same data through it twice and it's going to show like spit out different answers every time. So, but I think even if you can keep refining that part of it, there's still a problem. Like you're still, and I've talked about this a bit on LinkedIn and stuff about how you're inserting AI as a wall between you and the customer. And the whole point of qualitative research is to do the opposite of that. It's because companies already are reluctant to actually engage with their real customers for whatever reason. So this is like, it's like another excuse to do that. And even if it's like 99% matches how you would group the whatever responses into themes and categories, you're still, if you don't have direct contact with the unfiltered responses, there's a lot that you're going to miss out that doesn't just show up in the 32% of people mentioned price was an obstacle, or however that distribution looks.
I mean, the main problem with qualitative research is that it just is super time consuming if you
Yeah.
have large data sets to work with. And, agencies try to get around that by just kind of offloading that work to junior people. And then that creates problems as well because maybe they don't have the experience or understanding of the product or whatever. And it's just like people are constantly trying to get around that fact that, oh my God, this is such a huge task. It is very time consuming and it's hard to see the value in it when, top consultants in our field, they charge, I don't know, $200, $300 an hour. And then they have to spend like 20 hours coding up that survey data, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so the AI is very, the tagline is attractive that it's going to take away all those hours of work, right? But what it spits out is probably not as useful as you actually doing the work.
Yeah, and it's like the same issue with outsourcing anything, is you also outsource the understanding and the learnings and everything.
Yeah.
Like it applies to like getting somebody else to build a product for you or something. Like it's, you miss out on building that knowledge and being, deeply involved and connected with what's going on.
And the other day you were talking about the whole, and I mean, lots of people are posting about that as well, where they say that they don't really use Google anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying about that. So probably at some point soon, websites are going to lose out on a lot of traffic because people are going to get the information way more easily from AI tools.
Yeah.
So, like, my thing is, how important is then even good UX anymore on a website if the websites become just a source of information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at the plugin for ChatGPT that allows it to look at websites. And I forget what it's called at the moment. There's two of them. One is some kind of like link thingy, and then the other one is something. We'll put it up on the screen or in the description or something. But everybody knows what they are anyway. Everybody has ChatGPT. So anyway, using those things. When you tell it to look at a link, if you click, it will say that it used that plugin in the response. And then when you click it, you can actually see what it saw on the website. So I was trying to get it to read some documentation for like a framework that I'm using. And for some reason, it couldn't see any of the menu or navigation or anything. Like it just kind of got the main body. And I was like, okay, but what about this other section? It's like, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that. So, like, already, people are basically either inadvertently or like intentionally have control over what the AI sees on your website. Right. So, maybe this one was just a mistake and it just, for whatever reason, because of the way the website's built, it couldn't see it. But so that's going to become like a new version of SEO, right? There's going to be people who are called, and Lorenzo and I were joking about it in LinkedIn comments, of like AIO or whatever. AIO. I think it needs a better term than that, but there's going to be people arguing about it to change it years from now anyway, whatever it ends up being. But yeah, there's going to be like optimize the website for AI in order to like make it as easy as possible for the AI tools to consume your website, whether it's for training data or, just transactional or informational or whatever. Like if a website, or if, someone's doing a chat search about find me, the shoes that have the best reviews or something like that, then like, there's going to be competition in order to get your website to be considered by the AI. And that it can access all the information. And then also, once AI is doing more tasks, which is already happening, then you're going to want to make sure that your AI X is up to speed so that it's easy for the AI to actually, make a purchase and complete a transaction.
Yeah, it's just crazy how quickly all that came to be.
Yeah.
And in a way I understand why people are freaking out, but there are so many limitations still. And but I guess the scary part is that the potential is endless, right?
Yeah.
But I think anyone who is more in a strategist role and is good at it and kind of has the skills to see the big picture in business is never going to be out of a job because of AI. There's always like these things to optimize for, even as the AI grows and whatever, as you said. So I don't think that people should be really freaking out about that.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's kind of like similar to what happens with any kind of automation. Like some people get their jobs made a lot easier, or they're transformed. So instead of doing something like super manual and tedious, you're operating a machine that does something manual and tedious. But also, you need fewer people to operate the machines than you did to do the manual tedious stuff. So I think the fear is legitimate in a lot of cases. It's at least like really transformational, but there's going to be probably in a lot of sectors or industries are going to be need for fewer people.
Yeah, and especially at a time when we're seeing like major tech layoffs
Yeah.
already. Like that has been kind of crazy over the past, I guess that started last year already.
Yeah.
But this year it's been, especially in the beginning of the year, I feel like there was so much of it. Every day I opened the news or LinkedIn and there was like thousands of people being laid off.
Yeah, and lately, like in the past few weeks even, or a couple months, it's been a lot in the digital advertising area for some reason.
Oh, and I actually saw, I forget who put it out or did the stats, but there was a thing that said that the firing and hiring of copywriters completely like plummeted, and it was in correlation with the release of, I don't know, the last version of ChatGPT or something like that.
Like when it was released, a lot of copywriters got fired.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like so in that sense, like, it seems like AI is not on the level of a good copywriter, but at the same time, the hiring managers or companies who are trying to cut costs at a, time of economic
Yeah.
downturn, they don't care, right? As long as they have something to put the content or copy out for free.
Yeah, a lot of them aren't too concerned about putting out good quality content.
Yeah,
They
but
just
it's a
want to
very
churn out a lot of
short-sighted
it. Yeah,
decision, right? It's going to
totally.
come and bite you in the ass like later on. So don't fire your
Mm,
copywriters
yeah,
if you have good ones.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, the other thing which we were talking about earlier on that kind of topic is like so much content now is going to be written by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the vast, at the moment, I think ChatGPT's learning cutoff is like April of this year now. So that'll keep getting pushed. But if you picture like so much of what is being pumped out now is based on the knowledge of the world up until 2022 or early 2023, and they'll keep including more recent data in the training data, but as more of the content on the internet is written by AI, the more you have this situation where extending the training data means it's consuming more AI generated content.
Mm-hmm.
So AI is being trained by AI. And so that's an interesting
Yeah,
trend
who was
to.
it who told us about the course? She saw that was like, oh, how to use AI, and then she tried to contact the
Oh,
people, and it
yeah.
turned out that it was all the content was made up of
Everything was
everything
AI.
was made
Like,
by AI, and it was like this endless loop of AI, and there was even she didn't even find out if it was like real people behind it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
Totally.
Yeah. But I feel like we should wrap up this AI
Okay.
part of the video.
Yeah, it seems pretty good in cases where you actually do the majority of the work and you wanted to just kind of do more high level.
Like formalize it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or even like like not translating languages, but translating like point form into a paragraph or
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
way around or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
form it an official document so you don't have to think about those menial little tasks, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and even so, for example, we are re platforming our own site at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, and Ryan is just doing it
Yep.
because you have a development background, sort of.
Yeah.
So you're able to talk to the AI enough
Mm-hmm.
to get value out of it, which like I probably wouldn't be able to do at this point because I don't have that development background.
Yeah, yeah. It really needs, like, it'll get better in that respect, but at the moment it really needs you to know enough about it to be able to catch when it does mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And it does a lot of weird things like repeating, like it will keep putting in code that you told it isn't necessary or to take out. And like it does a lot of weird stuff. And then also like sometimes, if it provides some code and you try it and it doesn't work or whatever, um, it's sometimes you can kind of like just put the error message directly back in and say, oh, it didn't work, this is what I got, and it'd be like, oh, that probably means this. And like a lot of times it's pretty good at figuring it out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of like it gets to a local maxima where like sometimes I just really need to zoom out, think like outside the box and be like, what is the AI not thinking about, and and then tell it that, be like, okay, no, you forgot about this or whatever. And it's like, oh, it's very apologetic all the time. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I missed
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to spit out the right code after that.
But it's still pretty amazing that you're able to do that because, you know, we haven't gotten quotes from real developers, but
Mm.
this kind of replatforming project for a small site could probably cost up to 10K.
Yeah, it probably would, because we have a pretty custom setup, and
Yeah.
we're not just trying to like use an off the shelf template, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to be constrained by those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
we want enough control over things. And I'm also doing it in like a framework that I've never used before. So I'm like learning on the fly as I'm building it. And it's also going like way faster than than it took to build the site initially, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. That was like a several month long process. And this
Yeah.
is like going on a few weeks, but it's like a new platform that I've like never worked with before, so it's pretty good from that perspective. Also, like a side effect of like the chat GPT messing up is that it forces me to learn better
Mm-hmm.
too. So it's like, sometimes I want it to do something because I don't really understand how to do it, and then it just doesn't work out, and then it's like, okay, I just need to actually read the documentation on this point and understand like what's going on. So It's yeah, it kind of works both ways.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about AI?
Um, no, generally it's pretty crazy how quickly that all happened.
Yeah.
Like it was all there's plenty of AI stuff going on kind of in the background with machine learning already built into lots of tools. And then it's suddenly you can just talk to an AI chat thing and it actually like works. Like it went from like the sort of thing that was not on anyone's radar to now it's like everyone's talking about it and it is like amazingly powerful.
And
Like
it's a part of everyday life now.
yeah.
Like, that's the crazy part.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like we go talk to some dude at the ski store and he's talking about how he uses
Yeah.
it in his like in school and various things. Like yeah, it's like everybody talks about it. And it's also like it's what was the right word for this? It's just so powerful already. Like I've said that already. And as much as I talk about the shortcomings, like it's really good to know about the limitations and the shortcomings, but still overall it's like massively useful and it's going to be really interesting to see like where it goes from here because this is still such early days.
Technology is crazy. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes here because in preparation for this video, I just kind of went through both of our LinkedIn posts
Oh.
for this year and just my own notes of what I was writing about this year and so on. And I think the next thing we have to get into again, which has just kind of been beaten to death at this point. But it's
I'm kind of where this is going.
it's such a big part of our work and it's just so frustrating that we have to talk about it at least. So that is of course GA4.
Yes.
Oh my god, I don't even know what to say about it. It's so frustrating.
Well, this isn't our first video about GA4 or
True.
post or anything, so
And
we've
I
said
actually just
a
recently
lot.
checked that our most read blog article of all time is the one that Usman wrote. That's like the best reports for CROs from
Oh yeah.
GA4 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the video that I did with Usman about GA4 is the most popular one, and it's just like people are searching so much about it because nobody understands how it works. And that's just another one of those things that is almost to me at the same level as the AI craziness because GA is such a like a foundational part of our work and you can't really have a good experimentation program without the foundation of good analytics and and we know we've been working with companies that have invested thousands and thousands of dollars and time and years into setting up their universal analytics and then it was all just kind of flushed down the toilet and everyone had to start from zero.
Yeah, and it's starting from zero in like it's like moving to a different town or something or a different country.
But I think it's also one of those funny things where the panic was so big around it
Yeah.
and when Google implemented that big red countdown clock when I think it was the July 1st when it actually had to stop collecting and whatever the universal I mean.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? Like the world's ending and then nothing really happened. Like people just I think most people now just ignore their analytics. Like they just kind of work around it or do something.
Yeah.
But like e-coms kind of rely on their Shopify or they have their mixed panel or something and then they just kind of don't really talk about GA anymore.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like you said, a lot of e-coms are they just go by what they see in Shopify, or they're using like a lot of them are really ad traffic driven. So they're relying on the data from the ad platforms to kind of tell them what's going on because it's measuring the conversion to, you set up the pixel and whatever. And so you sort of can get some data that way. And then there's also other tools that kind of aggregate that, like Triple Whale and stuff like that, where you can look at performance across a lot of channels and it does kind of like cross-platform attribution and stuff. So that side of things, there's other solutions out there. But it was kind of shocking actually. Like it used to be that, say, there's some kind of change that needed to be made with people's UA setup, or they were, migrating to a new site or whatever it might be. If there was like the risk of an interruption in the analytics data, like people took that very seriously. They were like, no, we need to plan this out. We need to, bring in experts and whatever just to keep that continuity of data happening. And like to the point where we would always advocate setting up like a backup raw data view just in case somebody
And the
like
testing view, if you have your tests
yeah,
and whatever. Like,
because it can happen. Someone accidentally sets up a filter wrong or something, and suddenly no data's coming in, or they accidentally delete the snippet, and so people didn't want to like have a gap in their analytics data. And then when UA went away, suddenly there wasn't as nearly as much worry about that sort of thing. Like, there's companies that sort of let the auto migration happen, and I haven't seen any accounts or properties where that worked out okay. Like there's always unintended consequences. Or they had somebody come in and just set up a basic GA4 tag and there's no customization or no events or anything. And so say they sort of have analytics, but not really. Like nothing really useful is happening in there. And it's just like it was such a beast to work with that people are like, okay, well, maybe how much do we really care about like
yeah, and like, more specifically related to what we do and what people we work with do is experimentation.
yeah.
Which everyone knows that you can't really rely on the testing tool for reporting. And that was its own like big part of the job, is to set up the GA to talk to the testing tool so you can do proper reporting. And now it's basically just like not possible, right? Like without BigQuery or whatever.
Yeah, there's those, the other like hyperlog log plus
Yeah, and you did that event with convert people as well, where
the
there was
panel
a
discussion.
yeah, and I like that they actually invited me to that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
I
I was
forgot
immediately
about
like, I don't even want to talk about it.
that. Yeah,
Like
totally.
Ryan is the analytics nerd, so he will go.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
and it was about like working with experiment data in GA4. And as part of that, I was like, okay, well, really, the short answer is
but
you can't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not possible
it's
anymore.
not good. You'll make the wrong decision. So,
And then just the expectation that any CRO or marketing person should be able to set up BigQuery for themselves and do all those reportings there is just like so unrealistic in my opinion. And I always get hate on that when I say that it's not possible anymore for CROs to just know all of those areas and be super into analytics. Like it was hard when we started out 6 years ago to be good at analytics. And now it's like pretty much impossible if you don't specialize in it specifically, I think.
yeah. Plus, it's changing like almost every day, too.
Yeah.
Like, like even people are saying when the sunset was even announced, like, this is kind of crazy. Like, GA4 seems like, well, it still was in beta, actually. And even now, it feels like it should still be in beta. And it seems like, recently, like within the past couple months, there's more action happening. Like they just announced that they're removing Google signals from the reporting identities, and which is a good move. Like that was causing a lot of problems. So it seems like they are slowly getting around to like listening to the feedback and making some tweaks and making things make more sense. And so I wonder if the user count estimation problem will actually be solved by them at some point, and especially like if not generally speaking, because they have their reasons for doing a lot of this kind of stuff, mostly to save costs. Like they don't want to provide all this data storage and data processing for free for millions of people.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, is that the bottom line is that it was a free tool and GA4 is a free tool.
Yeah.
And you get what you pay for. Especially
Yeah.
at this time in digital marketing's history where there aren't very many free tools at all. And it's just it's kind of like surprising to me in that sense where it was free for so long and it was pretty good. It was
Yeah.
like the superior tool for analytics that everybody used pretty much,
Mm.
right? That didn't want to pay for Adobe or 360 or whatever.
Yeah, well, 360 is still the same thing. But,
Yeah, but 360 people got the extension for using the universal, right?
Oh yeah, they're still using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if like yeah, how long that will go. Yeah, and then I also suspect that if they do make any sort of exception to make it so that you actually can rely on the test data in GA4, it will probably only be through the integrations with their partners. Like there's a few testing tools that like VWO is one of them, and Optimizely, and I think Convert is also part of that now, but there was just a handful initially that had like the full integration. So probably it will be like as part of that as well. We can hope.
Yeah, and as part of our own work this year, we have done quite a bit of analytics work, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, there is a huge demand for it in a sense, but it's also hard for me to estimate if, like, it is a lot of work to set it up properly for someone else, and then they are still the ones that need to be able to use it and
Mm-hmm.
have or get value out of it. And it's hard for me to tell at this point if that is actually happening for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to get a read on that too. I know like we've had to level up our approach quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it used to be setting up the analytics was almost enough, like for
Yeah.
most use cases, because people were familiar enough with UA and they could go in there and go to their reports and they just want to know that, the data is getting in there
Mm-hmm.
properly and that they can sort of trust it, you know. And, maybe they want additional events to be tracked or whatever. But with GA4, it's like so unintuitive.
Yeah, it's just the whole interface is clunky and really hard to figure anything basic out that was fairly easy in
Yeah.
Universal.
Yeah. So the way that we're tackling that is with like the data dictionary concept,
Mm-hmm.
so that there's like a reference that the less technical or everyone really like who is using the analytics can actually see what the list of metrics are, how those translate into actual events and parameters in GA4, and then also even like which reports it can actually go to find that particular metric, or since the reports are pretty limited, that also means building explorations and then also just building dashboards and stuff like that. So there's a lot more work that needs to surround GA4 in order to get it to that kind of
Yeah, and
usability.
even from that perspective, it's like how much time you have to put into having a decent analytics now. It's not realistic to expect, to hire one CRO person or whatever, and then
Mm.
they can do all the testing and the analytics and all the research. Like it's not possible anymore. And I feel like
Yeah.
that is one of the things that changed in our industry in the past year so much is that the whole, I don't know, like CRO used to be this sort of small thing under the digital marketing umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's expanded so much that
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's possible anymore for one person to do all of these things.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that when we started 6 years ago or whenever, it was kind of the expectation, or at least how we were trained, that a good CRO strategist is supposed to at least know how to do all of these things,
Yeah.
even if they have support people or teams
Mm.
around them, but you were supposed to know how all of these areas work in and out.
Yeah, it's like back then you shouldn't really expect that there's going to be someone else on the project,
Yeah.
that so that you don't have to think about analytics or
Mm-hmm.
test planning or
And
whatever it
even
might
then,
be.
it was like there were very few people that were actually at that level or
Yeah.
that could do analytics well.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And now it's just
Hmm.
completely different direction, I feel like.
Yeah, and one way of looking at it is that it's good for consultants and agencies who
True,
can
yeah.
do it. Although it's like you can't really feel good about like, oh hey, you all got kind of screwed over by Google and everything's a lot harder and now you have to pay for this, which you didn't have to pay for before. But yeah, there's a real need for it anyway.
So this is probably a good segue into the other connected part of Google tools, which is the cancellation of Google Optimize that all the small businesses and freelancers were relying on for years because it was free.
And also like pretty good most of the time.
Yeah, there was obviously no support or anything, but it worked and
Yeah.
it was good enough.
Yeah, and there's a big enough community of people using it because of it being free and widely adopted. But it definitely had some quirks. Like there's a couple times when we would install Google Optimize, run an AA test, and the variant would be
Yeah.
7% ahead. Like, okay, maybe that's just the one out of 20, significant results that you get with an AA test. So run it again, same thing. And like it was, never it was never possible to actually figure out why that was happening. But sometimes the solution was uninstall it, create a new account, or at least just a new container, and reinstall, and then it's fine. But not always. Like I think there was one project we were on where we tried it a couple times, and we ended up having to use a paid tool for that client because it just Google Optimizer wasn't working with their site for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess the most disappointing part for me, and I've posted about it several times, that happened with this change was how a lot of our peers reacted to it and how they kind of like, I don't know, used this weird logic where the fact that this free tool is going to cease to exist somehow means that the quality of experimentation is going to get better,
Yeah.
which is just like I can't see the logic in it, however way I look at it. Just because you have to pay for a tool means that you're, I don't know, I guess the logic is then you're more invested in learning about it or something, but I don't think that humans work that way and that most companies work like that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's not like the tool does anything on its own.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the counter effect of it is that where people feel like, oh, I'm already paying hundreds of dollars or thousands for this tool, so I'm going to put all my trust into this tool
Oh,
because
yeah.
it should accommodate the things. Like, why should I spend all this extra time about learning this topic if I'm, hi Winston, if I'm paying all this money? So to me, it's like the exact opposite. What's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird because just paying more money for a tool doesn't really get you any benefit. Like if you get the same thing for free versus paying for it, why not get it for free? Like that benefits everybody. And I think it's better. It's like almost at the core of the argument is that they think that it's bad for CRO to be more accessible.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah,
That's really annoying.
because I think the opposite. I think even if there's more people doing CRO badly, that's still more people doing it who will eventually learn to do it better, or companies hire somebody and they do a bad job, and then they're motivated to find somebody who actually knows what they're talking about to do it properly and stuff versus not doing it all. So.
And I guess right now the only free tool that we know of is VWO that is also limited based on the sessions or whatever.
Yeah, it's free up to 50,000 monthly tracked users at the moment. There are free tiers for other tools out there, like StatSig, for example. But I haven't really figured out how to use StatSig. Like it's not the same type of tool. It's more. It has a much steeper learning curve. It's not like really meant. It's not all that end user friendly. There's a new one that just got launched like last week, I think. It's called Magic Ink. I
Promising name.
Yeah, I signed up for it and just kind of poked around a little bit, and it's like, very early stages, but so I haven't had a chance to actually test it out on a real site, or so I don't know how well it functions, but it seems pretty usable anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Who made it?
There's a guy named David Fine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm actually surprised it took this long for somebody to do that, because that's like well, how much opportunity is there in having a free tool? But I assume at some point he will figure out a way to monetize it.
But I mean, that's been a thing for several years that I've seen as well, is that companies, they develop their own internal testing tool, right?
Yeah, true. Like, the testing tools aren't really that complicated.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. It wouldn't be that hard to just develop it from scratch. There's people that do it with GTM, which I don't think is a good idea, because by the time GTM will load the testing tool, it's just too late in the load process. So you're gonna end up with like weird flickering issues and stuff. But whatever people are doing in GTM, and then there's also like the lack of an interface. Like, every time you do a test, you're gonna have to create a tag and mess around with all this code and stuff like that. But whatever is going on in GTM, you can just hard code that, and it's just, randomly assigning users to a bucket and delivering some code and stuff.
Yeah, maybe this is a good segue into just the overall topic of that I kind of like mentioned already as well, that there are not many free tools left at all that you can use in your marketing tool stack.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's moving up market.
Yeah, especially the qualitative research part has been pretty difficult lately to find good tools, because even if you have a bigger company with a pretty big marketing budget, most of the agencies, CRO agencies or freelancers or whatever, their fee usually does not include the tools, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be almost a way more strategic discussion before committing to a project, that the client understands that they have this extra cost of paying for several tools as well.
Yeah.
And it didn't used to be so bad, I think.
Yeah, it was like pretty much just user testing. Like, you'd always have to pay for that, but it was so much more reasonable.
Yeah, it has really, really, I don't know if exploded is the right word, but like, I get that building that type of software is probably pretty complicated and, takes money and time and whatever. And then also building a good tester panel.
Yeah.
Which is interesting what Winter is doing, where if you bring your own panel, it's free, right?
Yeah, some of the user testing tools had that as an option too. But it is pretty hard to get quality user testers if you're trying to do that on your own. Like, one sort of paradox or something is that for user testing, you kind of want people who aren't familiar with your website. So, and the easiest way to recruit user testers would be on your website or your email list or something. So that's one kind of challenge with it. But otherwise, like, if you're gonna get, the people that you want to get to go through your website for user testing and stuff, like, you're gonna have to pay them. Like, these
the incentives need to be there.
Yeah, they're not just gonna do it for free. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that they have to pay something for it. But I also think a lot of these tools have really, like, the pricing just doesn't make sense. Like, if you boil it down to like price per participant, it's that money's not going to the participants.
Yeah. And then the survey tools all have implemented this model where you're capped by a specific number of responses, which means that before starting your research project, you have to predict how many responses you're going to get magically.
Yeah.
Which is like also just so counterintuitive for qualitative research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to predict that for sure.
And why should you be able to?
Yeah.
So it's this thing where, on one hand I understand from the business perspective and scalability, you need to move up market and you need to go after those enterprise clients, but it's kind of leaving this entire market share of SMBs underserved almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of like almost the same thing with Optimize, is that like a lot of people just won't do it. It's like, it's getting harder and harder to like conduct good qualitative research cost effectively.
Yep.
And so, and it's already kind of like a hard sell. Maybe like it's not always a hard sell, but so a lot of times there you have to do a lot of convincing that it's even worth it, even because of all the other hurdles. Like say, oh, hey, we want to send out yet another survey to your email list who you maybe already send a bunch of stuff to, and you don't want them to, get mad at you for spamming their inbox. And there's all these other considerations already. And, paying somebody to actually do all this work and put it together and distill the insights out of it and, turn it into something actionable. So, it's already kind of expensive. And then if it's also like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to spend $10,000 on user testing credits to even do this.
Yep. So it's almost like every aspect of our job this year has really gotten so much more complicated.
Yeah, good thing we have AI to help us save some time on other stuff.
I mean, maybe we won't have a job at all anyway, so who cares, right? So looking at my notes here, like a lot of stuff happened this year.
Yeah, it's hard to like keep on top of all of it.
So I think we covered most of the big things that have happened, generally in our industry. And you can let us know in the comments if we missed something. Probably we did miss something really big that we're not remembering.
Yeah.
In terms of just our own work or kind of what we were focusing on this year, because I feel like our focus wasn't really on doing a lot of content.
Yeah, we didn't do much of that.
Yeah, we had the biggest project we've had during those 3.5 years, and we got to work with Deckers.
Yeah, Decker's brands.
Yeah, which is the parent brand of Uggs and Hoka's and a couple of others, which was it was a big deal for us. It's a big name.
True.
And
yeah, big project.
It was a really good experience, I think, and it went really well.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun working with their various UX teams.
Yeah, and I think big part of it came down to their team just being so great. Like
They're an award-winning experimentation team.
True. I forget who gave that award. Was it Dynamic Yield?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they got an award.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those rare teams where everyone, obviously specializes in their own area, but they were all really interested in learning about the bigger, I don't know, picture CRO stuff. And we got to do a lot of trainings for all areas like analytics and qualitative and
building systems for them to use and making their life easier or harder, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. And we actually managed to increase their testing velocity quite a bit.
Yeah. Basically almost doubling the amount of tests that they were running. Which is pretty huge. Like they were already running a lot of tests. Like this wasn't just they were running one or two or something. They've had an experimentation going for a couple of years, and they've been doing a lot. So it's pretty cool to be able to jump in and help accelerate things that much.
Other things that we've been working on this year, the bigger thing was we launched our own template product thingy, which is kind of like a dingy little product.
I don't know
But it
about
still
dingy.
generated some passive income for us, which was kind of cool. And it's still up for sale if anyone's
Yeah.
interested. But basically, it's a Google Sheets template for pre-test analysis and post-test analysis.
Yeah. This is very much a like solving our own problem first. Actually, not even that. Like we just made this for our own use and have
Yeah.
been using them for years, and then pretty much every project we're using these templates since we started building them. And yeah, we just figured why not just package this up as a little bundle for a nominal fee so that other people can do it as well, because there's a lot of people using these free A/B testing calculators, and you're always having to copy and paste in between those and wherever you're actually going to store the data or report on it and stuff. And then yeah, so that's one of the problems, I guess. There's like a whole, we don't have to go through the whole list, it's on the landing page of like what the tool solve. But yeah, it was kind of a fun idea, a little experiment in just creating and selling a digital product. And
And yeah, it was surprising to me how almost difficult it is even just to have the infrastructure around selling something digitally. A lot of it we already had set up, like we used ConvertKit, and we have our website that we've had for a long time, and it's just. But I started thinking if we would have done it really from scratch, like we needed to set up a new website with all the new systems of Stripe and whatever, it would have probably taken like way longer.
oh yeah, true. Yeah, we kind of made use of like, because we already had Stripe set up and ConvertKit. So yeah.
So it was like a really good exercise for us to, I don't know, do more of a businessy thing rather than a CRO service thing.
Yeah, totally. Which was part of the plan all along.
Yeah.
And I think we even talked about that in earlier videos and stuff. We wanted to have kind of a balanced approach of doing service work and then also building something.
Yeah. And I think we're going to focus on stuff like that maybe next year even more.
Yep. We have some things in the works.
And other stuff that we did, I guess, sort of a new thing for us was we took part of the Experiment Nations online conference thing, both of us.
Yeah, true.
So if you don't know what that is, it's an initiative led by Rommel Santiago, who is a very prominent person in our industry. And who has been able to build this cool community and like a yearly event where people submit their pre-recorded talks, and then there's people who judge it, and I actually got voted one of the best new speakers, which was pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't know, I did put a lot of work into it. I think when I entered the competition, I knew I was going after the award.
Oh, I see. Wow.
I'm not going to stay humble. I know what I did.
I did not get any awards.
You should have, though. That was one of the more frustrating parts about it, because I think your video actually got it was one of the highest watched videos, or it had the highest amount of views or something.
Yeah, the most actually. Well, the last time I looked at it anyway. Maybe it's shifted since then, but
so yeah, maybe it was just too boring for the judges because it was all statistical talk and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the driest subject that I could have chosen.
But still, the people were interested, and people want to learn about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too, because there's a lot of kind of conflicting information out there about stats. Like there's a lot of like people who are really into statistics, like data scientists and PhDs and stuff, that in my opinion just really kind of make it depressing and overly complicated for everyone. Like basically no matter how good you think your approach to web A/B test statistics is, there's going to be someone out there who will say like, oh, you're doing this thing wrong, or you should have a higher or a lower p-value threshold or whatever. Like, and I think it's really counterproductive, because I don't think we need that level of precision or like, we're just trying to make more money on websites.
Yeah, we're not curing cancer here. We're doing marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think people are really kind of craving just a sensible but reasonable approach to statistics. And I think I called it statistical sanity as opposed to statistical madness, which is what's going on out there these days. So yeah, it's something that people are pretty interested in, and so I wanted to focus on that of just like what is like a good enough approach to statistics that covers you, so you're not being too lenient with it, but also not taking it as seriously as you should if you were trying to cure cancer.
Yeah, and it's just one of those topics where I think your talk was over an hour long or something.
Yeah, it ended
but
up
it's not
really long.
it's not possible to really boil it down much more.
Yeah.
Because it's just a big, complicated topic, and that's why the people who do watch that are the ones that are actually really into that work.
Yeah, totally.
And that's, not comparing to mine. That was just simple about landing pages that everyone understands.
It's a much more accessible topic.
It is. That's why I went for it. But overall, how did you find the experience of doing something like that?
Well, that was kind of cool. I've also presented at physical conference as well. So, there's a lot obviously missing from the virtual conference thing. I thought it was kind of funny in the lead up to it that a lot of the presenters were excited about it as if it was a conference, and it's kind of anticlimactic in that sense. You just sit there and record your video and send it in.
Yeah, and I think
and then it gets promoted.
kind of want to talk about more of the awards stuff in our industry too, but it's just, I think maybe a lot of people don't realize that there is no awards. It's just a LinkedIn post with your name.
Yeah, they don't send you
they don't send you anything for winning, or it's still cool that people say you won, but that's about it. But I think overall, for me it was like the first time of, I don't know, doing a talk somewhere else or whatever. And I appreciate that kind of low stakes environment where you can try it out with like a pre-recorded thing.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful doing a live anything,
for sure,
especially physically in front of people. But either way.
So I think overall the initiative is pretty cool, and I like that the awards are still based on a specific input. Like you have to make something, and then you get judged on it, right?
Yeah.
Which is not the case with any of the other awards in our industry, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like winning the science fair at school rather than
not even that. It's
popular
just
student.
Yeah, and then the people. I guess people get the vote or whatever, but it ends up being that the people who already have the biggest followings win anyway, because they just share it in their social, and there's a difference if you have 10K followers versus 1K followers.
Oh yeah, are there even like CRO awards that are based on voting?
I think the Chameleon one was.
Oh,
like the last round or something.
Oh. Okay, I just assumed it was mostly. Well, it is mostly vendors.
Yeah, that's the other thing that we all have to, realize that these awards are given by vendors, and they want practitioners to feel good and.
This is a marketing strategy for them.
It's all marketing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just another one of those things that I feel like maybe not this year, but over the past couple of years has exploded, where everybody is giving an award for something, and then usually it's the same people giving it to each other.
Yeah, there's exactly a lot of the same people kind of involved all the time. And it tends to be the most visible people. They're most kind of active, and like a lot of people are just quietly working away behind the scenes, not really talking about what they're doing, and maybe they deserve an award, but no one would know to give it to them.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate those more like competition types of things that Romil is trying to do, where there is a clear criteria of how and why you enter. Yeah. You make something, and then based on that, you either win or you don't, right?
Yeah, Totally.
So how would you summarize this year overall?
Kind of hectic, I guess. A lot of changes in the industry. Um, It'd be interesting to see what happens in the coming year. Uh, like maybe we're gonna get a chance to catch our breath and just get used to the changes, or I don't know. Is there any other crazy stuff coming out of left field?
Yeah, I don't know because yeah, with the GA stuff and whatever, everybody there was a huge lead up to it. Everybody
Yeah.
knew it was coming. So right now, I don't feel like there is anything similar, really.
Yeah.
Maybe on a kind of like a sadder note, more of those layoffs and that kind of stuff will happen. And even now, I've gotten a couple of messages just from people who have connected with me this year that are working in a specific marketing vertical and they want to get into CRO and they're asking like
Mm.
how to do it and whatever, and it's a pretty interesting challenge because I think people are realizing that there's a lot more money in CRO than like
Mm.
other marketing verticals if you're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And it's almost harder for established professionals to move into that vertical because they're not going to want to take an entry level job or start from scratch, right? As opposed to maybe a younger person who is just getting into the field.
Yeah. Although it can be good. I mean, if you're willing to do that, having experience in some other area is definitely beneficial for CRO work. Like there's, people that come from more of a design kind of background or
Mm-hmm.
more analytics or web development or, even like SEO to some extent. And that's another industry that seems to be in kind of rough shape. There was an article by Rand Fishkin recently, and he's talking about hearing from a lot of SEO agency owners that are kind of struggling with pipeline, like they're just not getting as many leads aren't as likely to convert.
Maybe that's related to also what we've been seeing, how a lot of marketing agencies that are kind of established themselves as PPC or SEO are trying to add on CRO services without really
Mm.
knowing what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
that's
actually did a post about that too, where it's one of those weird things that doesn't happen the other way around. Like no
mm-hmm.
serious CRO agency has ever tried to convince their clients that hey, we should start doing your ads or your SEO now as well, really.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like we kind of recognize those other things as like different disciplines,
Mm-hmm.
not really our area. Like let someone else specialize in that. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Why like you don't see CRO agencies kind of.
But maybe it's related to the fact that they're struggling, so they need extra revenue or something.
Yeah, yeah, and actually in the article that I was reading, that was kind of one of the takeaways too, is that like a lot of them are kind of pivoting into just offering different types of services, analytics being one of them,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just more demand out there. And then as far as like the causes, it seems to be related to general economic conditions affecting the availability of like venture capital money.
Mm-hmm.
So like capital was kind of a lot easier to come by when interest rates were super low, and so now that's not the case, and a lot of the funding has dried up, and it looks like kind of 2021 was maybe the peak, and this is kind of after a long period of easy money. Like
Mm-hmm.
rates were really low for a long time, and so finally that's kind of caught up with us, and I think we're just seeing the early stages of the ramifications of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of like the layoffs and stuff are a pretty good indicator that the bigger companies are preparing for a more serious downturn.
But I think part of that, in a backwards way, can be better for consulting people as well
Mm.
because a lot of companies that we've seen they don't even want to or they can't really keep um, employees because they don't have maybe enough work for them. They're also moving more into the project based structure where they will bring in
Mm-hmm.
specialists, you know, based on their current need, which even
Yeah.
is like very analytics related as well. Like, probably it would be better if you have somebody on staff that is head of analytics and constantly knows what's going on there. But, if you don't have the funds for that, you're just going to hire a specialist to come set it up and you're going to learn how to use it and then move on, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the trend of like fractional CMO
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that too, where it's like, why spend 200K per year to hire a person, especially in early stages when you're just kind of getting things set up, like
Yeah.
when you could pay an agency a fraction of that, or, a fraction, like someone to hold a fractional role or something. But like a CRO agency is kind of like a fractional in-house CRO team, or at least we try to act that way as being like pretty deeply integrated.
Yeah, really trying to include different departments that we don't
Yeah.
work with on a daily basis and just kind of get information and
Yeah.
buy-in and all that.
Yeah, and like out of necessity too, because like the idea that the client side can have one point of contact with a CRO agency is kind of just not realistic.
Yeah, it almost becomes that broken telephone game, right?
Yeah.
Where they have to relay your initiatives and messaging to all the other people they work with when it would be easier to just get on a call and explain your own
Yeah.
agenda or what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and even just like being more aware of what's going on inside the organization can be really helpful. I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe not at first. Like I like to do a lot of the initial stages of CRO stuff, like the audit, being pretty naive about everything. Like I really just want to go from knowing nothing to knowing what the customer knows
Mm-hmm.
first before being biased by what the company thinks the customer knows.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But like after that, then there's a lot of benefits to having, being a little bit more tightly coupled, more integrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess what we've been talking about that for next year, our own plans, we want to focus on bigger companies as well with our services because they are the ones that can have the most value out of an experimentation program like acceleration and all that. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that small companies can't do CRO and whatever, but it's just especially at the moment with all the tools, free tools going away and all that, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more fun for everyone involved if the company has decent volume, decent revenue. It's like everything kind of works a little bit better with CRO.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're early on, you need more of like a very strong head of growth or something, like
Mm,
somebody who is really good at growth hacking. And that includes some parts from CRO, like doing
yeah.
experiments quickly and whatever. But you
Hmm.
sort of need to have a different mindset about it than doing proper CRO at a company that already has been doing experimentation for a long time.
Yeah, you kind of need to give up on the idea of like having a high degree of confidence in what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
you're gonna need to just make some changes that you won't even really be able to measure
Mm-hmm.
reliably. Like you can sort of get a bit of a read on it, but the more you try to kind of force, you know, testing methods and stuff on low volume, the more it's like a false, not a false economy, but false precision or something. Like it would be better just to kind of go with your gut in a lot of cases and say we think we should make this because we have some validation, usually more qualitative. You should definitely be like, not isolating yourself in a little room with your team and whatever,
Yeah,
but
and that's the big sort of, I don't know, downside of that we have experienced over the last couple of years as well with smaller clients that are very early on is that actually after, I don't know, after a 3 month CRO project, it turns out they don't have product market fit.
mm,
And it doesn't really matter what we try to do on their website. There's maybe another area in their business that they need to sort out first to
yeah,
actually generate revenue, even to pay for these services and whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And that, we don't want to be those types of consultants or an agency that just kind of keeps milking a client, even though we already see there's no point in doing what we are good at doing when they need to focus on a different vertical of their business. Like, we're going to be honest with them and tell them, like, hey, this is not working. We figured out these and these things. And, a lot of people will come at me as well and tell that, CRO is supposed to help identify product market fit and whatever. And, maybe, but it's not like you can keep doing it as a consultant then indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, you can use some of the tactics or methods of CRO in that early stage process of getting to product market fit, but it's not really, you're not really doing CRO.
Yeah.
You're taking some parts of it, and you're doing some customer research, hopefully, or customer discovery, or whatever. But yeah, it just gets a lot easier with higher volume website, bigger clients. They're better able to afford the services.
And they will see the value very quickly.
Yeah. It's like they can afford to pay to do it properly, which then completely multiplies the benefit of it. And then also because, they already have enough revenue that a 5% lift in that is...
Or even just getting the testing velocity up, which so many companies that have an experimentation program struggle with.
Yeah, true.
And that's what, people like us are really good at doing, coming in and kind of identifying the gaps within their own optimization program and kind of filling in those gaps and giving them the tools to take it to the next level.
Yeah. And we're also happy to build a new program from scratch as well. But, a mix of both is good, I think.
Yeah, everyone is just so different in terms of where they are in their journey. And I think that's one of our strengths as a boutique agency as well, is that we can work within that constraint and kind of meet the client where they are.
Yeah, we're definitely a lot more adaptable than a large agency.
Yeah, and it's fun too. It's just interesting learning about all these different areas of where everyone is with their business and what their needs are. And okay, got a little self-promoting at the end here, but it's kind of like been one of our gaps, is we feel like we're not as good as talking about what we actually do as we should be.
Yeah.
So
totally.
we're trying to be better at that now.
Shameless self-promotion.
Totally. Okay, should we wrap this up?
Okay, let's wrap up the 2023 Wrapped.
Crazy year.
Yeah.
AI,
for sure. AI.
Google screwed us all over.
Google. Also
AI, true. Thanks for listening, watching, if you're still here for some reason.
Oh, of course.
It's probably like our longest video ever. But I think it's okay because we didn't make a lot of videos this year.
Yeah, we had to make up for that.
So yeah, happy holidays to all of you. Hope your holiday campaigns and stuff is going well.
Yeah, totally. And
Winston really wants to say something.
Winston is signing off with some good meows.
But yeah, thanks for watching, and let us know if we missed something about 2023, something big that happened, and see you next year.
1 hour 23. Aww.